and it's not Wesley Crusher. It's Wil Wheaton playing Wil Wheaton, and it's terrible. Hi guys, Geeker64 here, and today we're talking about Picard Season 2, Episode 10, titled Farewell. And farewell indeed to one of the worst seasons of television I've ever sat through. Picard is one of the worst TV shows I've ever seen 2 seasons of. And that's really disappointing for Picard, which is a character that I care a lot about. And I'll preface with this, the same thing I prefaced in the last video. And multiple videos before that. I am a longtime Star Trek fan. I love Star Trek. I've loved it since I was a kid. I don't like New Trek. I don't think New Trek is Star Trek on multiple fundamental levels. If you are liking New Trek, I'm not here to take away your fun. This is just my opinion. My opinion is just as valid as anybody else's. But in my opinion, Picard has been an utter dumpster fire.
Another, please.
Sir, is there a problem?
I'm just making sure no one ever has to eat this.
Let's just go and jump into the episode. So the episode kicks off, it pretty much kicks off where the last episode ended, where they defeated the Borg special forces, and the Borg Roddy took the ship into space. So they're gone, and they're at the chateau, and Picard points to the bullet holes in the chateau. It's like, oh, I remember these bullet holes from conversations that I had from when my family came back and took the chateau back. These are the exact same bullet holes, so that means we might be on the same path, meaning it's a predestination type of approach to time travel. But how would you remember bullet holes being in specific spots based on conversations that you had, like from, I guess, passed down from generation to generation, when you already established the fact that the chateau was last used in World War II, so there's no reason to think that it didn't have holes from that. Anyway, this whole part is dumb. We open up and it's just as dumb as the rest of the show's been, so at least we're off to a dumb start. And before the Borg Roddy, I'm going to start calling him the Borg Roddy. The Borg Roddy is Girardi and the Borg Queen, who randomly decided to merge and become one being. Before the Borg Roddy took the ship out into space, she left a message, a riddle, so to speak. There's 2 Renees, one must live and one must die. And I don't remember if I said it specifically in my last review. I might have, or I might have edited it out. I don't remember. But most people knew that this meant that somebody was going to die, and most likely it was going to be the Not Loris Watcher. Well, the Not Loris Watcher, upon hearing this riddle, immediately knows she's the one who's going to die. She's going to sacrifice her life for Renee, and she's perfectly okay with it. But Picard's not perfectly okay with it, so when they transport away to get back to the Europa mission to make sure Renee makes her flight, Picard jumps into the transporter, and then they get whisked away. So then we cut to a scene of space, just to remind you that Star Trek has something to do with space, because without this shot, we probably wouldn't know. But I actually kind of like this shot. It just is fairly pointless from a narrative perspective, but at least to give us a little visual break, zooms through the solar system and then back to Earth and lands on where the Europa mission's about to take off. We get some back chatter on on mission control. So yeah, I kind of like this scene. It's pretty much the only thing I liked in the whole episode, mainly because it had nothing to do with the story. So Picard and the Watcher are arguing. Picard wants to save the Watcher. The Watcher's like, my life's not yours to save. I'm not your mother. Other people's lives aren't up to you, and neither are their deaths. They're their own fate. And they have this conversation, and Picard's like, oh, okay, I guess.
Damn it, I'm not stupid!
Then we cut to Soong's lab, where Rafi and Rios and Seven, who Seven doesn't act like Seven anymore. I'm just not going to call her Seven. I'm going to call her 9 from now on. For the rest of this review, I'm going to call her 9. So Rios, Rafi, and 9 teleport to Soong's lab, and there's an audio recording of Soong in the other room, like coordinating something. They walk in the other room, and it's just an audio recording of Soong, and Rafi says, oh, this whole thing was just a ruse to draw us away, to draw us here. And I'm just like, you have a transporter, you can just transport away. There's no drawing somebody to a specific area. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but okay, whatever. Rafi's dumb, so at least that's sticking with character.
Oh,
They do find 4 drones in the lab that are going to be launched, and they're going to go and attack the Europa mission and stop it. So Raffi tries to hack the drones. I'm not really sure why they don't use the tricorder. This is something that is demonstrated even in this season, the fact that the tricorders can hack computers, although it's been infrequent as far as how it works, because to these writers, science fiction is magic and there's no established rules to the technology. But if you want to take something like Star Trek Voyager Future's End episode, that'll give you a good read on what tricorders can and can't do. And when you have technology from different time periods, it can be harder to handle as a writer. And unfortunately, these writers are terrible, so they're completely inept and incapable of actually managing this. But regardless, Raffi can't hack the system for whatever reason. She tries to manually get in. It's encrypted. She can't do anything. And they can't destroy the drones because the drones are rigged to self-destruct and explode and destroy them if they try and destroy them. At least that's what they say. So in previous shows, how you would do it as a Starfleet officer, I'm just saying from watching Star Trek, you would take a phaser, you'd set it to overload, you'd put it right next to the drones, then you'd get the hell out of the house and just blow up everything. You're long gone by the time the thing explodes, so it's fine. That's the way that you should do it. But they don't do it that way. So we cut back to the Europa mission, and Soong is getting a tour from one of the people who runs the mission, and he's just being a real jerk. But the real question I have about this is, how did he get back so quickly? They were at the chateau in France. The only reason why Picard and crew got back so fast is because they have a transporter. Soong does not have access to a transporter. The only reason he was transported to the chateau was because the Borg Queen had hacked the ship's systems. So how did he get beamed? He couldn't have beamed back. He would have had to have flown. So there's no explanation as far as how he got back so quick. It's kind of weird. And then when the woman escorting Soong says, well, you can't meet the astronauts, unfortunately, because they're in quarantine, and he just gets upset and he's like, I gave you a lot of money. I can't meet with the astronauts. And she's like, okay. She immediately caves. And I don't buy this either, because there's a whole reason why astronauts are put into quarantine prior to a launch. And just because some rich guy walks in, they're not going to just be like, yeah, quarantine measures are out the window. I'm going to go introduce you. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Then the Watcher shows up, has a conversation with Renee. Renee immediately recognizes that this person is not part of the mission because she knows everybody on the mission. And the Watcher explains who she is. And then we're kind of left on a little bit of a cliffhanger as we segue away as to whether Renee actually believes this person. Then the drones take off, and there's supposed to be like this tense moment. I had zero tension in this scene at all. I had zero tension really in this entire season. Actually, I would say in the entire show. I don't know if there's even a single moment of tension that I felt between both seasons of this show. But regardless, Rios ends up getting full control over the drones and then runs them into each other and stops the drones. So then we cut back and we get Renee. She's running out, and she's like, oh, there's this alien person who says she's my guardian angel or whatever, and runs right into Soong, and Soong basically takes her hand or whatever. Anyway, he injects her with neurotoxin through a patch that's on his hand, and Renee starts to die, essentially. But we already know that this is going to be the Watcher. We know that's the case. It's not shocking at all. Soong takes off, and then the Watcher walks out and meets up with Picard. Picard holds her in his arms and says, hey, look up. And hey, look up. See, it harkens back to the first episode. That makes it good. The fact that he said look up, just like in the first episode where they said look up, or in the flashbacks where his mother said look up. See, it all rhymes. That makes it good, right? No, it doesn't.
This is idiotic.
And the Watcher says something that I think goes completely into destroying Picard as a character, but we'll talk more about that throughout this review. She says, your guilt must have saved planets by now. Countless lives in trade for the one you couldn't. And that's basically in reference to the fact that this whole childhood trauma and the stuff that he went through with his mother, that everything he's done in his entire life is because of this one thing that happened. And it really belittles who this character is and changes his motivations that have been, shown throughout the entire existence of the character. It really messes up Picard's character when you point that out and say, this is the reason why you became a Starfleet officer. This is the reason you're a captain. I think it belittles it and really makes it it really dumbs it down, what it was a pretty complex character. Also, the Watcher says that it's too late to use any medical tech, so she has to die. She can't stop the poison. She has to die from it. There's no real reason why. She has to die because that's what the story demands. Soong gets back to his lab. He's really upset. He realizes that he lost. He starts breaking some things, and then we cut back to his daughter, the daughter that was introduced that we don't care about, with the whole side plot that we don't care about. She comes back. She's in a library somewhere. She has an Oculus Rift. And she's like, I'm going to hack into Soong's systems and delete every single file he has. And apparently he has no backups. He has no off-site backups. He has no on-site backups. All of his files and all of his work is located on this one system that she was able to hack remotely and delete everything, which is, all of the things that are unbelievable here, this has got to be one of the most unbelievable things. This guy is a genius scientist who has all of this tech that does not blend in with the year 2024 at all. He's got all this future tech he developed, and he didn't back up his own systems. That's crazy. So after he gets mad at the fact all of his stuff was deleted, he pulls out a hard file from his desk and he smiles, and it says the folder says Project Khan, obviously alluding to Khan, and it's dated July 7, 1996. And here's the thing: if they were going to use Soong in this season, if they were going to have this character around, this should have tied into the eugenics war. This shouldn't have been what it was in this season. Honestly, he was pointless. Soong was a pointless character. So Soong's daughter gets a message, and she's going to go meet this person who left her a message, and we think it's kind of Q because Q left some messages for her earlier, but no, it's not Q, it's Wesley Crusher. And I'm one of the few Star Trek TNG fans who actually, I like Wesley Crusher. Now, he's not my favorite character by any stretch of the imagination, but I liked him in comparison to a lot of TNG fans who really didn't like him. I liked a lot of episodes with Wesley Crusher. There was multiple episodes, like when he meets his hologram version of his dad. I thought that was pretty touching. After he joined Starfleet and the Red Squad command that he deals with, and in that whole mystery around what happened with these cadets. There's lots of episodes with Wesley Crusher that I like. But here's the thing, this isn't Wesley Crusher. This is Wil Wheaton playing Wil Wheaton. This is not Wesley Crusher at all. There was zero acting on display here. This was Wil Wheaton showing up to read some dialogue, and it's terribly acted. It was just disgusting. I always wanted to see Wesley Crusher come back as a traveler, and there's so many different aspects that you could really take that character. As someone who watched TNG when I was younger and seeing Wesley's story, I was like, oh man, it'd be cool to see, what happened with this character. And now he finally comes back after all these years, and it's not Wesley Crusher, it's Wil Wheaton playing Wil Wheaton, and it's terrible. There was this thing back in the day called the DreamWorks smirk, and what that was in reference to is the DreamWorks animation company kept putting out all of their posters, and all of their characters had this dumb smirk on their face. And every time Wil Wheaton was playing Wil Wheaton, I just saw this dumb smirk on his face, and I was like, this is terrible. Like, you come back to play Wesley Crusher, and you don't play Wesley Crusher. You play Wil Wheaton. And he says, the last time I told a joke, I inadvertently changed a century's worth of history. So let's just blame all of New Trek on Wil Wheaton, who is pretending to be Wesley Crusher, but actually isn't Wesley Crusher. It's just Wil Wheaton. And they completely rewrite what the Travelers are in the way that Wil Wheaton explains what they do. The Travelers are now protectors of time and space. They protect the tapestry of time and space, and they recruit supervisors to go look over specific people like the Watcher. And that's what he shows up to do. He wants to recruit Soong's daughter for some dumb reason with zero qualifications. There's no reason to recruit her, but whatever. And they completely change what the Travelers are. The Travelers are explorers. They travel around the galaxy. They're not limited to the Milky Way galaxy. They travel all around time and space. They hitch rides on ships, and it's all about exploring different civilizations. They just do it in a slightly different way. They can protect time and space. That isn't outside the realm of what they're capable of doing, but that's not their primary goal. You completely changed what the Traveler is here in this episode with this dumb scene that doesn't do anything. It's almost like a completely separate show that was shoehorned in here to set up some backdoor pilot for an episode or for a show that we don't care about. So Renee takes off and everything's fine. They're back at the chateau. The whole crew's back there, and Rios is getting all of the equipment together to get rid of all the butterflies, like completely ignoring the fact that there's Borg stuck in the walls underneath them, that they've murdered multiple people who should exist in this timeline. Yeah, I think those are butterflies too. But regardless, the whole point of them being back is this showing their acceptance of the fact that they're stuck in this time now and trying to figure out what to do. And then 9 and Rafi get back together, apparently, from this relationship that happened between 1 and 2 that none of us bought. We didn't buy it here in season 2 at all. We hated it, and 9 kisses Rafi. And again, I'm calling her 9 because she's not 7. I refuse to believe 7 would be interested in Rafi. Rafi is a completely insufferable, annoying, terrible character that doesn't even fit into Star Trek. She has some terrible dialogue. She's selfish. She destroys everybody's lives and blames everybody for her problems. She is a terrible character. I don't like her.
The worst. She's the worst in the world.
Cutting back to Picard, he puts the skeleton key back into the wall, and basically what this signifies is the fact that he's accepting the things that happened to him. So he's in the past, he's putting the skeleton key back in the wall. His past self is going to find that skeleton key, and that's the key that he uses to let his mother out of the room, and his mother ultimately dies as a result of that. And here's the thing, if you're going to do the childhood trauma stuff, I've said it before, the childhood trauma stuff is terrible for Picard. He's a 90-year-old established character that you're giving childhood trauma to, and the childhood trauma you're giving him is very basic. I don't understand why you don't use the established continuity. His childhood was not the best thing. He was the black sheep of the family. He wanted to go out and explore. He had problems with his brother. They didn't get along. His parents seemed to prefer Jean-Luc over his brother Robert. And that's all established. I don't know why you wouldn't use something from the established continuity instead of changing continuity and basically making Robert, basically writing him out of the story. It's almost like he doesn't exist anymore. But I do know why. It's because the writers don't know anything about these characters. They don't know anything about Star Trek. So whatever. Moving on. Because Picard accepts his fate, because Picard accepts what's going to happen to him, Q shows up. Then Q and Picard have a conversation, and Picard asks, why me? And Q says, I'm moving on. I'm dying alone, and I don't want that for you. You're now unshackled by the past, implying that this entire season was just Q doing this to show Picard something. But if you actually break down the parts of the season that have to do with Picard learning something, there's not much there. It's just this one childhood trauma thing that they basically cover in one episode that nobody really cares about. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And Q says that Picard specifically matters to him. He says even gods have favorites. And yeah, we all knew that Q liked Picard and showed special interest in Picard, but he showed interest in Picard because of what Picard represented as far as humanity goes. It was a bigger question than just Picard on an individual level, and this is something New Trek consistently loses, is the bigger picture, because they focus on childish selfish feelings more so than the bigger picture of what's actually happening. Picard was a representation of some of the best aspects of humanity, and that's what Q found interest in. That was the whole point of Q putting humanity on trial in the first 2 episodes of Star Trek TNG and the last 2 episodes of TNG, and Picard saw things outside of the human perspective, which is how the end of TNG, how that ends. So Q's interest in Picard is more about what Picard represents the best of humanity. It's not him specifically as an individual. Now his interests could evolve, you could argue, to be more than what it is shown to be, but I think that it really belittles the whole bigger question of Q's interest in humanity through Picard whenever you make it about the specific relationship between those 2 people. Then something really stupid happens, but isn't something that we all suspected watching this season, which is that Rios was either going to stay in the past with the clinic lady and the kid or take the clinic lady and the kid back with them to the future. Well, he decides to stay in the past, and I'm really aggravated about this because Rios is the only new character that's worth anything in this show. He was the only new character I liked, and now he's gone. He stays in the past. He stays in the past with a woman that he met less than 3 days ago, and his experiences in the past were were less than thrilling. I'm pretty sure that he didn't have a fun time, especially in the first day or two that he was here in 2024. So the idea that he decides to stay in the past makes no sense. And not only that, but he's a Starfleet officer and there's a temporal prime directive. There's absolutely zero chance of you being able to just stay in the past because you feel like it. This is, again, another part of New Trek that is terrible. It's all about individual feelings and wants. It's not about the bigger picture or implications for anything. Picard gives Q a hug, and honestly, it's nice to see John DeLance as Q. Every time he was on screen this season, it made it better, but still, the writing was terrible. It's just the gravitas he brings into that role. Just what a complete waste of Q here. But Picard hugs Q and is like, well, you're not alone. And, the whole, again, they don't really explain any of what Q's motivations or reasoning are here in the final episode, outside of the fact that he was supposedly teaching Picard a lesson, but apparently Q still has all of his powers, so I guess that was made up unless the writers just decided to give him his powers back for the sake of plot. But regardless, he does have his powers because he snaps back the Picard crew and they're back to reality. They snap back to reality. And they're back where they were in episode 1. And there's absolutely zero explanation as to why Q brought Elnor, Rafi, Nine, and Rios, and Girardi, and Picard. Like, why did he pick these specific people? They weren't centrally located. Elnor wasn't even on the ship. Nine was on a different ship as well. So, I mean, I don't understand what the point of that, why he picked those specific people. It's not explained at all. Regardless, they're back on the Stargazer, and at this point we know who the Borg Queen is because we saw the last episode and we saw this season, unfortunately. And pretty much most of us probably figured out about episode 4 who the Borg Queen was from episode 1. But episode 5 was 100% confirmed, and some of us might have known by episode 3 or earlier. Who knows? But regardless, we all know who the Borg Queen is now at this point. She pulls back the face mask that she has, and you see that it's Borg Roddy. Yeah, Borg Roddy is here, and it is terrible makeup, terrifying face. It was awful.
We are here to make money and sell out and stuff.
And the music that was playing in the first episode, she's playing that music over the speakers to calm down Picard and show who she is. You know what a good way to show who you are is probably just to show your face. And there's no real good explanation for why Girardi was on the actual bridge of the ship looking at Girardi, the Borg Girardi, and then she just disappears. So it's kind of strange. I guess that's a Q manipulation thing, but whatever. Yeah, probably just taking your mask down is probably going to show who you are to Picard better than playing some song that is supposed to make him feel better. Anyway, the whole reason why Borg Roddy is trying to take over the ships is that she needs the ships to harmonize heat shields to stop an anomaly that just magically just appeared without any explanation, and needs all of these ships to go sink their heat shields to block this thing, because this thing is apparently going to destroy the entire Alpha Quadrant. No explanation really as to why that is, but regardless, that's what she needs to do. I found it funny that in 400 years of being the Borg Roddy, the only ship that she managed to have is Cloister, the Pokemon Cloister, floating around in space. But regardless, that's what's happening. And Picard gives Nine a commission to captain, and this is obviously referencing back to the stupid line that was thrown out in the last episode, where apparently Starfleet didn't accept Nine into Starfleet because she was a Borg, which makes absolutely no sense even in their own New Trek continuity, because Ichep was shown to be in Starfleet in season 1 of Picard. So this is stupid. That was pointless. And why would Picard just give her command? His reasoning is that she knows the most about the Borg. Well, he also knows a lot about the Borg. He was Locutus as well. And he also knows far more being a captain of a starship than Nine does. So, but regardless, it happens. And it's just to harken back to that stupid reference thing that they threw out in the last episode. I will say that I'm happy to at least see different models of ships. I mentioned this in the first episode. I was like, thank you. You have different ships in the fleet instead of copy and paste ships like you did from the first season. So I'll give you props for at least doing that. So they all warp and they're about to put their heat shields up and block this blast that's going to come out of this anomaly. But the Excelsior is not synced for some reason. So they hail it. And then who answers? It's Elnor, Cadet Elnor, who's been in Starfleet for what, a year, less than a year, something like that. And why would their hail go directly to a cadet? Where's the captain of the ship? It doesn't matter, because the whole point of this is just to show that Elnor's back alive, that Q brought Elnor back to life. Again, proving what I said. I don't think Q ever lost his powers. I feel like he was making all that up, and Q is completely fine. Either that or the writers are just even worse than I could have possibly imagined, which could also be the case as well. So they stop the anomaly, and a transwarp conduit is opened up as a result, and the Borg Radi wants to join the Federation to guard the gate from any potential threat that they suspect might be coming through it. Then we get Picard, and he's back in Guinan's bar, and Guinan has full memory of what happened, and apparently it's alluded to that she knew that Picard was going to go back to 2024, but she couldn't say anything about it. And there's absolutely no mention of Time's Arrow. You know, a lot of people kept having faith with the writers for some reason that they were going to talk about Time's Arrow or explain Time's Arrow, and the fact that Picard and Guinan met in the 1800s. And there was conversation over, well, they're in an alternate timeline, and that's not really what it is. They were in their own timeline. They just came from an alternate future. So they went back in time. So 2024, there's absolutely no reason why Picard and Guinan should have knowledge of their meeting, especially when he goes back and she has knowledge of their meeting, but they still don't talk about the fact that they met in the 1800s. And ultimately, it's because the writers didn't know that they met in the 1800s. That's the only explanation that makes any kind of sense. Guinan and Picard's relationship is a very integral part to Picard's life, and they just completely missed a very essential piece and completely miswrote younger Guinan in the way that she was presented in 2024. And there's apparently a picture of Rios with the clinic lady back there, and apparently it had been there all the time, and Picard never noticed it. And Guinan gives a little rundown as far as what happened with Rios. So apparently Rios married her, and they started a medical movement called Butterflies. It's all kind of vague as far as what that actually means. But the kid ended up growing up, and he put together a team of the brightest minds in the world, and they found a way to heal the oceans and clean the sky using the organism that Renee found on the Europa mission. Okay, well, I guess that's one way to tie it in and actually give some weight or meaning into what it was that the point of the season was, although that really turned out not to be the point of the season. But the thing that was really aggravating, or actually one lie that she definitely told, was that Guinan said that the clinic lady could drink Rios under the table, and I 100% doubt that. I 100% doubt that. She weighs like all of 110 pounds, if that. No way she could outdrink Rios, I'm just saying. But Rios apparently died in a bar fight over some medical supplies. That's what happened. So he probably lived, the way that's implied is he was a little bit older, but he wasn't too old. So he's probably like, what, pushing 60 or something like that. He gets in a bar fight and is killed with a cigar in his mouth. So Rios is dead. Rios is dead. The only new character worth a damn is dead.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer.
Picard toasts a family, and the family that's there is Elnor, Rafi, and Nine, and that's his family. And I'm like, no, we don't buy your connection to these characters. You've had 2 seasons to do something with these people, and I don't buy it at all. Picard, the idea that Picard cares about these people is maybe Elnor, because at least there was a little bit of backstory there. Rafi's been a completely insufferable, and his relationship with Nine is extremely minimal. But Picard goes back home and then gets with Loris, and he says, time can't give us second chances, but maybe people can. And so the entire point of this season is apparently to have Picard deal with his childhood so that he could get with Loris. That's the point of the season. That's the whole theme of the season. The point of the season is Picard, deal with your past because you push people away in your relationships. Now you've dealt with it, so now you can be in a relationship with Loris, whose husband was killed off screen in between season 1 and 2. Picard had plenty of relationships over the years. I mentioned this when I reviewed the first episode of this season. He's had plenty of relationships. The only reason why he had issues with relationships specifically with Dr. Crusher was because of all of the baggage that entailed, and the fact that her husband died as a result of Picard, and so Picard always kept her at arm's length. Had nothing to do with childhood trauma or anything like that. There was an actual reason as to why he was doing that. Other relationships didn't work out because he's the captain. It's hard for a captain of a ship to have relationships because everybody on the ship is pretty much under your command, It's hard to have relationships. It doesn't have anything to do with the stupid past trauma that they made up for him. And as I said in the last episode, themes aren't story. The main theme here is living in the past and being defined by it and getting over it to move on. Fine. But what you delivered and the way you delivered that is terrible. And ultimately, the secondary theme, which is the theme that runs through all of New Trek that I've seen, specifically Discovery and Picard, is that it's consistently put out there that your childish feelings are the most important thing. Not logic, it's not responsibility, it's not leadership, it's not diplomacy, it's not nuance, it's not fighting for something bigger than yourself. It's not fighting for humanity or anything like that. It's just self-reflective feelings and how the universe apparently revolves around these people as individuals. If you look at all the decisions that the characters make, they're all very selfish decisions. All of them. And no matter which character you pick, and the stories that revolve around them are stories that are all about them as individuals. It's not about any kind of higher purpose. I mean, compare it to something that was mentioned in Voyager's Future's End.
You're so dedicated, you know? Like, you care about something more than just your own little life.
Is that so unusual?
Yeah.
That's Star Trek. That is Star Trek. It's all about humanity, the betterment of humanity, and you bettering yourself as an individual betters humanity. And then it asks those big questions. And unfortunately, New Trek isn't interested in that. The main theme that they want to talk about is selfish drama. That's what they want to talk about. This entire season should have been 4 episodes. There was only enough story here to tell about 4 episodes. You could literally take this and edit out a bunch of stuff you don't need, re-edit it, and you can make this into 4 episodes that would be somewhat mediocre. I don't think you'd make it like great, but I would take mediocre over this dumpster fire that we got. Soong didn't need to be in the show. He was completely pointless. He worked as an avatar for things Q wanted, but Q's motivation was never made clear. Just whatever Q wanted Soong to do, that was the motivation that we had to work from. It didn't make any sense. All of Soong's the side stuff with his daughter, we didn't care about. It was completely pointless. Take that out completely. We don't need that. Q is ruined here because apparently he's dying, although I still say that I don't think he is. I think him dying was all a ruse. At least that's the way that it should work, because there's, other than that, the only way you can explain it is that he just got his powers back for that instance because the writers had to have them snap him out of there, and that's stupid. But you reduce Q when you do this, and the whole idea that he doesn't want to die alone. He has a kid. He has a kid, and he has the entire Q continuum with him, and he has a wife, or what is the closest thing, the approximation of a wife anyway, and the continuum, and a kid. Like I said, he is not alone, and there's no explanation as to why he's dying at all. Is he just dying, or is the whole continuum dying, and why is that happening? Well, apparently, and I still stick with this, I don't think that that's happening. I don't think any of that's happening. I think that this was all just a game that Q was playing with Picard, and I hope that's the case. What I would do is I'd have Q sipping a Mai Tai on a beach, and he would be like explaining some of the things in the season and explaining exactly what he was trying to do with Picard and show that he still has his powers, and the idea that he was dying was just a complete ruse. Q playing games, that's within character. Q treating Picard as some kind of special pet or whatever that was, I don't know if I buy that. I love John DeLance. He's great as Q. Every time he was on screen, he worked, he elevated this terrible season every time he was around, but still, the way that he's written is terrible. And of course, the Borg Queen's also ruined here. One of Trek's greatest villains is mitigated to Borgatti now, I guess. I don't think I'd ever buy the Borg Queen making this deal with Jurati, but assuming you were going to do this and you wanted to have a separate sect out there of the Borg, that could be interesting, and the way that you handled it, unfortunately, the way the writers seem to have handled it here is terrible, and there's really no explanation as to, did she really go back to the Delta Quadrant and destroy the main Borg? Like, are the Borg as we know them no more now? Or is this truly a separate sect of the Borg that's out there? And why does she only have one ship? Obviously, her mission failed if she was only able to recruit one ship in 400 years. And ultimately, Picard's Starfleet motivations are completely changed by this season. This season, much like the last season, this is a destruction of Picard as a character. That's really what you're seeing on display here. People want to say that you're deconstructing the character. No, you're not deconstructing the character, you're destroying the character by changing his motivations, by changing who he is on multiple fundamental levels. Think about it. His entire reason to join Starfleet now is because his mom said, look to the stars. It's really as simple as that. And he feels guilt, which is the reason he doesn't have any relationships. So that's it, all ties back to childhood trauma. And I think that's completely childish and just such a elementary approach to a complex character like Jean-Luc Picard. This character is no longer Jean-Luc Picard. This is Patrick Stewart. That's who this character is. It's not Jean-Luc Picard. It's not the captain that I recognize at all. So this season was just as bad as the first season. I know some people liked the first season and some people didn't like the second season. No, they're both terrible seasons of television. They're both terrible seasons of Star Trek. Season 2's different, is bad for different reasons, but they're still both pretty bad seasons of television. And this final episode did nothing. I had the most minimal amount of hope that they'd at least answer some of the dumb questions that they threw out there, but they weren't even capable of doing that. So Picard's character's destroyed, Q's character's destroyed, the Borg Queen's character's destroyed, Rios is dead, the only new character I care about, but at least Rafi and Nine are together. Who gives a shit?
Unmitigated disaster.
But at least it's over with, guys, and we're going to be moving on to talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I did watch the first episode of Strange New Worlds. I'll be doing a review for that. It'll be up sometime next week, and then I'm segueing into reviewing Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds, that could be okay. At least the first episode was better than any of the episodes in Picard, so a really low bar to go into it, but Strange New Worlds was able to step over that extremely low bar. So we'll be talking about Strange New Worlds, and Orville Season 3 is coming up next month, I believe, as well. So yeah, we'll be talking about both of those things. I'm really excited for the Orville, but what do you guys think? What did I not cover here that you guys noticed in this season, or really in this, specifically in this episode? You know, I'm interested to see what you guys think as well. I just want to thank all my subscribers. Welcome new subscribers for my Star Trek videos. As I said, those are continuing. And if you like this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, or don't. I'm not a bigger. I'm YouTube64, and I'll always tell you the truth.